Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. Many of us are dealing with things that we hold inside. Potentially, we're hurting in many different areas. Could be a trauma that took place years ago, could be something more recently. We're going to talk about the feelings of feeling hurt, being hurt, and how to release that. And that's just a piece of what this gentleman offers to the people in Canada. He's got a wonderful practice, and I love the name of the practice, Freedom and Hope Counseling and Therapeutic Services. It says it all. You want the freedom to feel like you've been released and feeling much better, and to have that hope. He is Daniel Klassen. He joins us here on the program today. Welcome, Daniel. How you doing?
Hey, very good. Thank you for having me.
Love the name. It says everything to me. It speaks to me. Freedom and hope. How did that come about for you?
Okay, so our organization really is just my wife and I. She's a registered clinical counselor. I'm a provisional psychologist right now. We've been both doing this for a while. I'm going into the provisional part so that it works easier for insurance, but our methodologies are all set, that sort of thing. Freedom and hope. Both of us came from what's called adverse childhood experiences, and that's where our childhood was really, really bad. And it's sort of what they call complex PTSD or complex, a post-traumatic stress. It's a time of your life that it's not only a bad time, it goes on for years. And both of us had a real tough time just even having our heads out of the water. But both of us have climbed out and functioning really well. And so freedom in the heart, freedom is very important, and hope to see a path forward for both of us. And that's where our heart is. And we want to help others do the same,
I love it. Thank you for your transparency on that. And that F word resonates with me. Got divorced back in the day. Didn't even, it was joint bank accounts. And, I had to go into the bank and open up my own account finally. And the woman at the bank, who decades later I'm still friends with, still connected to her, she's looking at me. She's like, all right, need a password on this account. What's it going to be? And I'm like, I don't know. She looks at me and she says, freedom.
Freedom.
And I never forgot that. And it's it has resonated for years since then. It's interesting when you realize whether you have freedom or not. And this leads us into a lot of the services that you offer, helping people move their lives forward. Because many of us, whether it's our situation, physically, whatever, or in our minds, many of us are truly not free.
That's right. There's a social freedom, that sort of thing, and we're all concerned about that. But there's an internal, sometimes a lack of freedom. We're so held in bondage, right? And to have that freedom first inside of you, so that regardless of what is happening out in the world. There was this guy in World War II, I think, and he spent some time in a concentration camp in Germany, and I've been there. That's horrible, seeing those ovens and all that. Oh my gosh, and how people were crammed together. But he was able just to have peace amongst the storm, right? And I really try to bring that to my clients. Regardless of what's happening on the outside, you can have peace. Whatever's actually happening on the inside, you can establish peace. And then everything really in life kind of opens up to you, and it becomes sort of like a superpower. I can do darn well almost anything when I have myself free.
I would go to church. I'm not very religious, but I would go from time to time, even in the last 5 years. I'm, we're both being transparent here. And
Sure.
people would say, peace be with you, peace be with you, peace
Yeah.
be with you.
Yeah.
And I'd say back to him, hey, peace be with you too.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it meant until I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have peace. That's what's
Yeah.
missing. There's a certain something there, but how do you get that peace? Is it figuring out what went on in your life when you were younger, that kind of like we talk about the PTSD situation?
Well, a huge amount of life. Uh, you're based out, you spring out of your childhood, just sort of like a tree kind of
Mm,
growing. And if the soil that you were raised in is problematic, you're going to have some issues. And if you have some things in your environment, like say an overhang on a building, you'll kind of like try to go towards the sun. And so the start of your life is the foundation, and if that is problematic, it it will cause issues right away. So, like you shoot off a cannon or an airplane, and it's 1 degree off. The trajectory will start to turn, and then in a person's life you can actually really go kind of swirly as it kind of goes around. And unless you actually sort of do what I'm going to be telling you today, is possible. It absolutely is possible. You can have freedom, and you can have hope. You can have a future. You can have a vision. And not only just you, but those around you. They notice the change, and then they want the same thing. So I'm sorry, I should be getting to what we're supposed to be talking
yeah,
about.
but it's I have to tell you, Daniel, I've talked about this before. I've never heard it described like the soil. There's an issue with the soil, and how
Yeah.
when as a child you're growing up, if there's a building in the way, or just as a metaphor, an example, you'll bend around it, but it's still problematic. I love it. I've never heard
Okay,
it
well,
described
here's
that way.
another one. Here's another one. So, growing up, I had to mow lawns, right? And you use some gasoline and you spill some gasoline on the grass or or a plant. The next day you see it and it's all shriveled up, and it's all so deformed because of what came on that uh, living thing. There is a way to remove that off so that you can actually become unshriveled, but you end up shriveling up, and you kind of go into a corkscrew sometimes, and then there's not very nice at the other end. But you can stop that, and it is actually in relationship to another who actually knows kind of what they're doing. So I wonder if you can let me just kind of describe to everybody what the internal mindscape structure is of a person, how I describe it, how my wife and we work, how hurt occurs, and how hurt can be released.
I'm listening with all ears. I really am. You have a wonderful way of explaining things. You really do.
Well, thank you. Um, it was born out of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of figuring out and a lot of, I don't know, maybe miracles in my life. I don't know. So, but I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for saying that.
So please, yes,
Okay, so
let's look at everything here, including hurt, eradicating hurt in our lives.
excellent. So I just want to put out there first that I don't believe any of the conceptualizations that I'll be offering during this segment can be proven, but I've found them to be very useful. I would like to assert first that any concepts that are uniquely mine that I will put forth today, I claim full ownership over, and I wish for those who want to use any of my concepts, let me know first, and we can kind of, put our minds together and
Sure.
make this happen. Okay, so really, I think was say when clients come in here, they have this hurt and they just don't know what to do with it. So I kind of describe to them who they are and how this all kind of happens. And I think we're fundamentally, primarily three parts there's three parts to our being. We have cognition, or we think, we have emotions, and we live in a body. So that might be a little simplistic to some people, but fundamentally, I don't know if you can argue with me. We live in a body, we have emotions, and we can think. I also believe that we live in series of moments, and one moment naturally folds into the next. And I'll just kind of describe that. So this morning I got up and I showered. That was a moment, and then I went out with some guys and we had breakfast. The trip there was a moment. Having breakfast was a moment. Getting ready for this segment was a moment. And we're having a moment now. So when all is well, moments fold together nicely, and we move forward without much drama or fanfare. And I'm going to talk about this a little later because it's kind of important. But to know what happens when trauma and hurt occurs, we need to understand how we function normally. And I'll just start with the body, and then more specifically with our senses. We actually have 10 senses. Did you know that?
Have 10 senses?
10 senses, yes. Okay, I'll rattle them off. Vision, hearing, taste, smell, touch, right? But there's also our body position. Are we kind of upright, or are we kind of off on the side? And that has to do with a balance too. When we're off kiltered, it says, hey, we also know about the temperature. Are we okay in this environment? Pain says a lot, whether internally or in the skin. Hunger and thirst. Now, these senses allow us to place ourselves in our environment and hopefully be secure in that and give us a way to move forward in life. Entering the mind, now I'm going to talk about my paradigm as to how things kind of go on. Entering the mind, these sensations interact with memory, our cognitive abilities, our emotions, all of which creates some form of behavior, like, oh, there's a nice car. Oh, I'm going to go and take a look at it, or something, We engage with our world through these senses, and they are our outwardly meters that help us find our place in the world. An example of this working is a person who may be in the dark and hears a noise that frightens them, and they don't know what it is. And the fear in them tells them to flee, so they run for safety. In this situation, the most powerful force here were the emotions, but specifically negative emotions. Now, how our body responds to negative emotions. Under prolonged stress, I get canker sores in my mouth. I might get a tightness in the chest that burns, and I can't sleep. All this is because of the overwhelm of emotions that are flowing into my body. Beyond minor occurrences of stress, difficult illnesses can occur from a negative emotions, such as cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, right? Gastrointestinal disorders, such as irritable bowel syndrome, respiratory symptom problems like asthma, or the immune system suppression, all can spring from stress in the body.
Ulcer. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, yeah.
Yep. Truth.
Dang. Okay, so cognition. So I'm switching from body to cognition. That's sort of like the second part, but we did talk about the emotions. Cognition is great for working through problems in your natural environment. But situations where emotions themselves are the problem, approaching emotions from a rational standpoint, I believe is pointless, actually, which, I think that might rub people the wrong way. Cognitive behavioral therapy is currently a gold standard in treating psychological dilemmas. But when it is used in regard to trauma, I find it simply unable to deal with it. If emotions are not engaged as they demand to be, therapy will fail. So I'll just put a pause on that. What do you think about that statement?
Repeat it again. I want to make sure I process it right.
Okay. If emotions are not engaged with as they demand, therapy will fail. Okay. So I got a client here and she's crying or he's crying about. It doesn't matter really whether you're a male or female or whatever, uh, um, what's going on the inside. It demands to be met, and so they're crying, and I'm like, oh dear, don't you know that you're safe? You know, you've had happier times. Just put it away and let it go. They'll say no. They'll be mad or they'll try to fight. You actually have to meet the emotions head on and speak their language, so to speak. And what comes out will be so much truth. What I say is that very often emotions are in 4K and the intellect just can't really handle the quality of information coming through the emotions. And so they falter and they're unable to speak to that high of level. So basically, I actually use a person's thinking ability just to describe what is going on. And then we kind of work it out. And then emotions actually have their voice. And it's like when the emotions recognize that you recognize them and I value that, it's like all of a sudden the atmosphere changes and they zone in on you, almost like, who are you and where did you come from? You're listening to me. And then we kind of work out what's kind of going on. But what's usually going on is a trauma. So let me describe to you my perspective of what a trauma is. To me, trauma is one moment you're going along happily in life, walking along, and then in the next minute, you're hit by something that totally overwhelms you, like a car accident, possibly, or the news of a death of someone you love. We are slammed, we are punted off the course of where we were going. Remember, I talked to you about trajectory? And trauma slaps you and poof, you're off. And the person that we were was actually kind of knocked out of us. And that's kind of a weird thing. But we can look at ourselves in the mirror after one of these occurrences. And while we look like ourselves, we don't feel like the people we were. We are now false selves of what we used to be. And this is fundamentally what dissociation is. That's another ballpark here, but I deal very much with dissociation. And actually, dissociation goes on a continuum from daydreaming to different personalities coming out, if to say.
Is that to say that when that emotion is coming up, let's say somebody's just thinking and then they're just feeling it and that it's overwhelming them, they disassociate, just daydream to get away from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you kind of become this other person for a moment, and somebody, you might get snapped back in and you can come back in. But in that going off, you can sometimes be in pain, and it's this internal thing. And so, yeah, actually what I do is I go and seek the person who is in pain and pull them out of that pain. But let's get to that a little bit. Negative emotion and trauma is a burdening of the being, okay? However, contrary to this, I believe we can all have benign or positive emotion. We can have all that we want. They do not cause trouble. Like positive emotions don't cause trouble. No one says peace, patience, kindness, and goodness. Stop doing that. No one says that. No one, right? Happiness and joy uplift, but negative emotions slow us. And trauma disrupts, debilitates, and ultimately works to destroy us. Now, I do a lot of metaphors here to get into things. Now, kind of how we process information. So I believe our senses feed us information into the mind. And the first part of our mind is like a net that envelops incoming stimulus. Once caught, the stimulus information is channeled forward where the memory adds in previous experiences, and cognitive abilities begin to process the input. Emotions chirp in, and the intellect decides what to do. And that often involves behavior in the body, such as movement or locomotion. Further to this, as I said before, our mind operates in series of moments, and therefore we live in these series of moments. And when all is well, one folds nicely into the next, moving seamlessly like a train going down the track, clickety clack, clickety clack. And right now, we're kind of flowing, me and you, and that's everything's all good. But when the mind is off with the negative emotions, I don't believe the mind is naturally actually set up for negative emotions. When negativity comes into the mind sets negative emotions to the side for further analysis and processing to hopefully make sense of it. But that's where hurt comes in. The mind becomes haunted by the violence against it in the form of trauma. It lingers with a radioactivity, intensity, and it doesn't seem to diminish.
Wow.
And what I would say before is when I started counseling, I wanted to be with the person, give them space, so to speak, and let them unravel their issues and try to, kind of figure things out and let them know that I'm witnessing and I'm seeing it. But that's often not enough. They need some tools. And I'll say internal family systems therapy, or IFS, developed by Richard Schwartz, actually does give the template how to bust some of this up. Okay, and what happened?
I don't even want to say these words. We're out of time.
No way.
Yeah, we have literally a minute. And here's why. We're at a pinnacle point, in my opinion, in talking about hurt and the hurt emotion and how we process it, where we put it over to the side.
Okay.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, so you can go into, and it does offer a system of going in, securing the individual and busting up the emotions. And it can happen like in, one session, that kind of thing. But then people come back and, they keep on getting these things cleaned. And afterwards, you do have the freedom that you want to, and you can move forward in life free and clear, so to speak, So, wow. Okay. Sorry for taking the time.
Oh, not at all. We'll dig back in if we can at some point at this, but this is so important where I didn't see it that way, where the emotion is there, like the train analogy, going down the tracks, and then you confront something. Let's say, the track is broken. So you kind of bump over that. That's the negative emotion. I didn't realize we take it and we throw it back there and we don't deal with it. And now it's sitting there creating hurt.
Absolutely. Wow. When you deal with something and toss it in the back of your vehicle, at some point, all those McDonald's wrappers are going to stink. People are coming into your car, recognize it. You're ashamed. Just deal with it.
Yeah.
And you can actually deal with it.
Wow. Daniel, thank you for making a lot of this clear. And again, I've never heard it made so crystal clear in the way you explained it today. If somebody is feeling some challenges, just wants to even start a conversation, somebody in Canada, because that's the people that you help, how do they find you?
Okay, we have a website. It's letters, so it's an acronym for our company, fhcts.ca. So for Freedom and Hope Counseling, fhcts.ca. Also, if you want to email me, it's just Daniel and then fhcts@outlook.com. I'd be happy to help you in Canada, as long as you're not in one of those provinces that I can't do that with. I like to teach, people as to their inner systems and all that. And so if you want to talk to me about possibly having some teaching opportunities, that sort of thing, I'd be very happy to do that as well.
This is all your purpose in life. And when you say teaching, it's crystal clear because I learned a lot today. And truly appreciate you being here and looking forward, Daniel, next time we get a chance to get together.
Yeah, I'm sad that I couldn't finish it because it would finish this, package. But yeah, I think you got a taste. Thank you for spending time with me. You're a pleasant individual.
You too. Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
All right.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.